We're reading from the book of Psalms 32, verse 8 to verse 9. And the word says, "The Lord says, I will teach you the way you should go. I will instruct you and advise you. Don't be stupid like a horse or a mule, which must be controlled with the bit and the bridle to make it submit." Now, my understanding of this text is that God is saying that He will show us the way that we should go and He will instruct and advise us. It is as simple as that. The only thing that we need to do is submit onto the teachings, onto the instruction, and onto the advice and implement it into our lives so that we have the ability to move forward. A lot of people do not want to submit to God's teachings because they believe that it is old fashioned, it doesn't suit them, it's not something that they would do because the world looks different. And they believe and think that God is, in a way, old fashioned, if I can say it that way, because the world is different. It's not like the world of the olden days. And yet they forget that even though the world might look different now and it might be older now, but God's teachings will always live past the world and its aging days. So I think that the best thing that we need to do is that we need to submit unto God's teachings and allow Him to instruct us and take His advice and implement it into our lives. Let us submit to God so that we can move forward in life. A lot of us are not submitting to God, and therefore forward movement doesn't happen because there are certain things that we do not want to implement in our lives. There are certain things that we do not want to let go. There are certain things that we do not want to understand because we feel like what we know is what we know, and we do not want to take on new teachings. A lot of people, especially even in the Old Testament, has lost out on the opportunity to live in the promised land because they didn't want to let go of the old. They didn't want to let go of the old truth. They wanted to do things the way they knew, and they didn't want God to teach them a new way of life. There are certain things that you need to understand, that if you want to change your life, if you want to move into a better direction or go into a new season, there are certain things that you have to learn now in order for you to gain access to that new season. A lot of the people that passed on in the desert were people that refused to learn. There were people that refused to obey God's instruction. There are people that refused to take God's advice because they were stuck in their old ways. So don't be stuck in your old ways and sabotage yourself from getting into the promise that God has made for us. God has promised us success. God has promised us prosperity. God has promised us safety and love and care, and He will constantly provide for us, so we will never lack. But because you are holding on to the old teachings and your old life, you refuse to learn the new, you refuse to obey the instruction, you refuse to implement the advice that God has given you, and you do not understand why you are not moving forward. Submit unto God's teachings so that you can learn something new, because God is equipping you for the new season. You cannot go into a new season if you're not able to handle the things that are going to happen. And people don't understand that. They believe that God is holding them behind. Meanwhile, they were just supposed to let go of something. They were just supposed to learn a new skill. They were just supposed to change direction. Allow God to be in your life as God. He says that He will teach us and He will show us where to go. Some of you guys want to go in the same direction as the world, where God tells you, I will show you where to go. And it might not even look like, where the world is going. And a lot of us are so comfortable with going with the world because you have a friend there in the world. You have friends and family, and you have that guy that always motivates you, and that granny that's clapping hands for you, and therefore you do not want to change direction, because if you change direction, you'll be by yourself. You're going into the new, and therefore instead of taking the chance and trusting God, you'd rather Remain where you are because this is what you know. And a lot of us have lost out on so many great things because we want to stick to what we know. Remember, the people that came out of Egypt never made it to the promised land because they held on to the old teachings and the old mindsets. They did not want to change. They were stubborn. They didn't want to follow God's instruction. They didn't want to follow God's advice. They didn't want to allow God to lead them. And therefore, they remained stuck with that mindset and never made it to the promised land. So do not allow yourself to remain stuck and never make it to the promises that God has for you. It is heartbreaking to go through a lot of things and at the end of the day miss out on the most beautiful life simply because we do not want to let go of our old ways.